Welcome into the Nutmeg Tavern. We're starting a little bit early. I promise I will. I'll go back right at the hour mark and we'll re-scratch and get started. But I thought we would just chat a little bit. So I see folks that are there and having fun in the chat. It's an exciting week. I'm working on all kinds of projects. I'm excited about lots of stuff. And I've got Lauren here and Ivy. Thankfully, Ivy's back in the console chair. Hopefully, you guys have had a good week. I mean, we had really cold weather, and then it warmed up enough that you can walk outside without your coat. Woohoo! I don't know. It's nice, I guess, to have a cold snap and snow, and then get back to just fall weather for a little bit, so you feel like good things
you
are
appreciate it
happening.
again.
Right. Again, for all those folks, since we're here ahead of time, we do have these just like crazy cool, yummy holiday flavored teas that are available on the website, and fun new mug designs. We usually do these at Christmas time with the. Do we have the right? See, we don't have the sign up.
I don't have him up yet. We were going to do it next week.
Right. So, this is the holiday version of the Nutmeg Tavern design. It's funny. When we originally did the designs, we came up with a couple different ones, and then we said, well, we like them all. Why can't we have them all? So we do. We just have this design for the wintertime. So lots of fun stuff going on in the Nutmeg Tavern at Townsend's, and I'm excited about some new project-y stuff that we'll be working on toward the end of the year and into next year, where we're taking on some manufacturing of some more period things. So lots and lots of stuff. So what is going on out here? Do they have any things? So people were making canon jokes in the dad canon jokes here in the chat. So this is the paperwork that I have for today's episode. It's like, okay, that's a little overkill, but as Lauren said, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time. Canon stuff is fun. Do you remember the bumper sticker Dave had?
No, right. I don't.
So Dave Taylor, who passed away recently, he had a bumper sticker on his van. It was something like, something about winning an argument with artillery. I can't remember exactly why. Then one of the reasons Dave had that was because he had a cannon for the Virginia State Navy. He had a 3-pounder cannon that they took to events, and it's basically. I think all males somewhere, down there in their DNA, want, need, desire a cannon of some size, shape, or whatever.
Has been my experience.
Maybe it isn't just guys. I don't know, but cannons are a desirable thing for a good half of the population. I spent a lot of time listening to and reading and thinking about the Aubrey and Maturin series, and of course that is chock full of cannons from one end to the other. So I have lots of fun reading and thinking about cannons, even though I do have parts of a cannon someplace.
So it's not a fully functioning.
Yeah, not a fully functioning cannon. And unless it's a proper size, that's not a cannon. That's just a little thing. So, are we ready to start the real thing here?
Yes, you can do the nutmeg one more time. Here we go.
Da-da-da-da. We are starting the Nutmeg Tavern here on time. Look at this. Here we go. We got the nutmeg. We got the nice warm drink here for this cool day in the tavern. Welcome in. Plenty of room here in the tavern. Lots of things. Most of it's, BYOD, bring your own drink, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy something, whatever is appropriate for where you're at and your own need.
What are you drinking today?
This is some of the blueberry tea.
Yep.
Wow. I tell you what, I can and I do basically drink tea all day long. I end up peeing a lot, but that's okay. That's okay. I like
Hydration. It's very important.
Yeah, hydration. That's it. Have you been to Saratoga, New York, or to Fort Ticonderoga? No, but I'm hoping to do some more traveling in the upcoming season where we get to. What are you giving me that look for?
You're just gonna go traveling because I just moved out, aren't you?
Time to travel.
I move out and you guys do a whole bunch of fun things.
Yep, now's the time.
That's the idea. Anyway. So today's topic is about cannons, and today we don't think about cannons a lot. It's not. We don't have a lot of. Unless you're close to a military base and there's artillery or something going on, it's just not part of our everyday life. But strangely enough, it was a lot more of daily life in the 18th century. Especially in places like colonial America, but in other places too. There's something about artillery and shooting off cannons that governments like to do to keep everybody sort of, wow, they're impressive, and we don't see that as much, I guess, today.
Fireworks
news,
might
right?
be a little closer,
right?
In that kind of celebratory,
exactly.
that sort of thing.
But if you read in the 18th century, the militia, which was a big part of colonial life, and say, 4th of July kinds of celebrations, different sorts of celebrations, the idea of getting out a cannon and shooting it off was just the thing they wanted to do, right? And so it's like, let's get up the cannons. And so people were, I think, a little more experienced with that. We don't see, like today, generally they don't like wheel in a piece of artillery and shoot it off for 4th of July, at least around here. Maybe where you live.
Maybe on the East Coast.
It's totally different, right? Unless it's a historical reenactment. But shooting off cannons was a thing in the time period. So people were used to that. And say like a military ship comes into port, they're going to shoot off cannons. That's what they do. Unless, of course, it's some port that doesn't have any kind of, official status. And then you wouldn't shoot off your cannon, because if you salute the fort, it has to salute you back. If it doesn't, that is, it's like an insult. So and we'll see some image of that. So there's somebody brewing some black tea and watching the live stream. Mm-hmm. Enjoy. So let's jump in here. I've got like a gazillion images. More than 10. More than 10 images of lots of different kinds of things here and we will probably just pop in and out. And feel free to interrupt me with questions or whatever. And if I have an answer, I will. I'm not guaranteeing that I am the all expert on everything artillery-wise, or basically anything. But let's look at some pictures. This we're starting off this image, which is drawn from the original drawing by Leonardo da Vinci, and it made me think of basically the true history of, or the earlier histories of cannons and stuff. So, here's Leonardo. Now, okay, I don't know why Leonardo decided that everybody working here in this cannon workshop should be naked.
That is quite the mystery.
Maybe
it's because it's warm, because it's a foundry?
I have no idea, but it seems odd that everybody would be working like that. Maybe it's just because he didn't want to draw people with clothes on. I don't know.
That seems very dangerous.
Maybe he wanted the time frame to be wider, so he didn't put clothes on because they're the most easily identifiable thing.
Could be. I don't know. Personally, I doubt that they all worked like that.
No, I don't think so.
Anyway, cannons and artillery have a lot deeper history than you would expect. Of course, they're doing it earlier in places like China, maybe even, I don't know, 12th century. Doesn't really come into Europe too much until we get to the 14th century. And they have these, that starts off with giant cannons that, and then they slowly kind of, figure out what's going on with cannons, and they get smaller and more reliable and not exploding and killing everyone. But I don't know. I was always fascinated with cannons as a kid. So what can I say? We've got a bunch of these images. I think, isn't this Italian?
It might be French.
Might be French.
But but one of those two, I think, yeah.
Right. So these are some early illustrations talking about artillery and cannons. Obviously, the outfits here are 1600s, 17th century, and we have some images here of people shooting off cannons, pouring water into cannons, probably washing them out. There's even one of the manuals here talks about the idea that after so many shots, you really have to clean the cannon. So between each shot, you were swabbing the cannon with like a sponge or sponging it to help clean it out. But after a while, you just plain have to clean it because the gunpowder of the time period would build up lots of residual soot and unburnt stuff, whatever. And pretty soon you wouldn't be able to get the cannonball down in it.
Right, it's like cleaning out your chimney. But
exactly. And you can only shoot them so much until they get so hot that as you put the charge in, it will just explode without you. And that would be bad. You don't want to be there when it explodes when it's not supposed to. So notice here the little sort of howitzer that they're shooting off on the right-hand side. And it's even got a rounded spherical chamber in the back, which could be very dangerous if the ball goes into that larger chamber in the back. I'm not sure. Some cannons, it's reverse of that. The chamber where you would have the powder would actually be smaller than the full diameter of the ball because, bad things could happen if it fell into that. But anyway, I'm not sure what they're trying to depict with that little cannon on the right-hand side, except that it's obviously a different design. It isn't a long gun. It isn't a long cannon.
So is the advantage of a long gun precision?
The advantage of the long gun is definitely precision. The longer the ball is in the chamber, not only is it getting more, in theory, better aimed, but also it gives the chance for the powder to build up more and more pressure behind the ball.
So we have at least one person in the chat who is on a cannon crew.
Well, that's good.
And she was saying that that the swabbing, one of the things the swabbing specifically is doing is putting out any sparks for safety reasons. Yeah. And then someone else was wondering when cannons stopped being in probably common use, and they're guessing late 19th century.
Right. So, obviously they're still in common use, right? In one sense, artillery is there's this
right. Not exactly how the form has changed, but yeah, right. They still do it. Yeah.
Right. It's still kind of the same thing going on, but definitely the idea of say like a muzzleloading cannon. All these cannons that we're going to be looking at are muzzleloading cannons, and that really changes, of course, when the idea of even the rifles change. So American Civil War is one of those, they're still shooting muzzleloading cannons and muzzleloading guns off, but things really start to change after that, where we get cartridges and a whole rear loading thing is going on. So we've got some other styles here. On the left-hand side, we have some mortars. And these are portable mortars that they've moved into besiege a town with. And, some of them are on just flat little platforms. The one there in the kind of center on the left has a little wheel on it. But the mortars are something you kind of pick up and carry into place. And they shoot the ball up and back down again to shoot things over the top of walls. They are a totally different aiming kind of procedure than long guns. And they talk about that in the books of the time period. So, you've got cannons for all these different sorts of jobs. Am I going to shoot it over the wall? Am I going to try to knock down the wall? Am I trying to, attack a different kind of, is this against people? Is this against a building? Is this against a ship? Is it blah, blah, blah? One of the things we don't think about too much is how you transport cannons or put them onto their carriages. And that's really an important thing going on here. In the center frame, we see that they've got a little crane so they can lower the cannon onto its carriage, and they have special jacks and tools to help do that. So sometimes the tools are there to aim the gun, but other times like, oh no, I need to be able to take the barrel off of this cannon or put it back on. So sometimes your wheel might fall off of your carriage, and all of a sudden you're, oh great, I have a 4,000 pound cannon barrel on the ground. What am I supposed to do with it? So you have to have the tools to be able to remount your cannon. And it isn't just if my carriage gets hit by another cannonball, it can just fall off. They're not the sturdiest things in the universe, and you're hauling them hundreds of miles behind a horse, and they just, the thing breaks. On the left-hand side here, on the right-hand side, the top one, where the guy is like sitting on top of the cannon barrel, I don't know what's going on. I do not know what he is doing.
So if you know,
yeah, if you've got an idea about the person who is on top of the cannon barrel, I would like to know it, because it just does not seem like a normal thing. It's not, So a cannon crew, and we still haven't seen full cannon crews here, but a cannon crew is going to be made up of many different people, especially these long guns. It isn't just 3 people, it isn't 4, but it's going to be a half a dozen minimally, and sometimes even more, depending on the size of the gun. And especially on board ship, you're moving the gun in and out from the side of the ship. You need to have people that are able to do that, and each person on the crew has a specific job. You put your finger here when we're doing this, you swab it out, you're carrying the cartridge, you're carrying the ball, you have a wad, a thing that goes in between the powder and the ball, you do this or that, So training everyone on the crew knows exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Like this top thing, I don't know of anybody who's supposed to ride on top of the barrel. I just don't know.
Someone's speculating that it may be attaching a sight. Like that's what they're trying to illustrate, is that he's putting this sight on the cannon.
Maybe.
I mean, it would at least make sense that he was in that area of the gun.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you look at the middle, on the right-hand side, on the middle, there is a sight on the gun.
There is a sight there, so.
Right, and the one guy in the chair or sitting on the barrel, he's holding it up.
Yeah.
Right, he's showing that there's a sight here. Again, this wonderful 17th century image of this artwork with it. There was this artist, he just likes to draw pictures of cannons.
He does. It really seemed to be one of his favorite things.
So, there's stubs and he's showing horses.
He loves horses.
This guy, he's all about cannons.
Cannon guy.
So we have different tools here we see. And now why you would need a rammer that's twice as long as the barrel of the cannon, I do not know. Again, I think sometimes they just get carried away. Why, some of the tools are as long as they are. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's got to be longer, but twice as long? Anyway.
Maybe it's so that if the gun's hot, you're farther away when you're doing the motion.
Maybe.
I don't know.
This cannon is fairly large, but the representation of the balls is fairly small. like this is a 4-pounder or something. Some of the smaller cannons that they would use in the time period. Here we go. This is a picture from, reenactment. We've got, 3 guys on one side and 2 to 3 on the other side. Actually, a fairly small crew here. And that's probably like a 6-pounder, a normal field gun. Now remember, there's lots of different kinds of cannons for different situations. You would have a different kind of cannon for a fixed battery. Say you're in a fort, or say you're a field artillery. You're going out to battle. That's a different kind of cannon. If you're on a board ship, that's a different kind of cannon. And there's even horse artillery, so little guns that you would be able to haul behind horses. So we got lots of fun, different kinds of. Here we go.
Okay, so you want to pause for a second?
Yep. Pausing. Here we go.
Okay. Somebody was asking earlier if the barrels of the cannons were rifled, and chat has commented that sometimes they were and sometimes they weren't, and that the rifling was good. It was better for aiming.
Yeah, that's what that happens in the 19th century. It's really not a thing in the 18th century at all. Heck, they were barely doing it to their carrying their rifles and muskets. You just didn't, rifling just wasn't a.
They weren't quite there yet.
Right. I mean, the British really rejected it until they got into the almost the early 19th century. It took kind of seeing other people's armies do it and say, maybe we need to step up and do that.
Maybe this is a good idea.
Exactly.
And then, this one I wanted to read from it and not write down because I was worried I was going to write down wrong. Okay, were the gun barrels the same for both field artillery and naval artillery of a given shot weight, i.e. could a field gun be plopped onto a naval gun carriage?
That's a good question, and I don't have the exact answer for that.
I feel like I'd read sometimes in historical fiction that they did that when they needed to.
Exactly. I think when there might be situations. That's a good question. The designs continue to change all the way through the 18th century. Even sort of it seemed to us almost superfluous designs of. The shaping of different parts, which shouldn't make any difference, and there's sort of fashion to the cannons as well as the the effectiveness of different designs, and whether or not they were exactly the same between the two is really good. Maybe somebody can pop in and say something about that. So I don't know.
Okay, onward.
Okay.
Be looking at our cannonball and our tools.
Yes. Yeah. So there we go. This cannon here, fairly small sized cannon, and it's on a carriage that is a ship, a naval carriage, but the wheels are kind of seemingly a little large for that. So they may be kind of mixing their metaphors here a little bit. It's like, well, let's put some kind of bigger wheels on this because we want to be able to use it in a field situation, even though it's not really a field carriage. But we can see what we're looking at here, though, more importantly, are the tools, right? So specific tools, the linstock, which has the match on it, which is a slow-burning rope, basically. We have a rammer. We have a scoop there that we can put the powder in with. If it's loose, generally, people shoot with their gunpowder in a package, like either a cloth bag in the time period, or a lot of times they just put it in tinfoil today. But in the time period, they might just put powder in. More than likely, they would have it in a bag, though. And then there's the swab there for swabbing out the barrel, making sure that there aren't any sparks in it, like someone was saying there. And the furthest one there is probably like a scraper sort of piece. So a lot of times if people today shoot something like have their cartridges in tinfoil, you really want to scrape all that stuff out. And even if you're using a cloth bag, you don't want that to build up in the cannon. So a lot of that just like shoots out the front, but not all of it. There's a cannonball on the right-hand side, and they're going to be cast iron in our time period, and they aren't always perfect. And of course, especially on board ship and in other situations, they get rusty, and you want the cannonball to be as smooth and perfect as you can possibly get it, so that it flies straight. And so one of the jobs of sometimes sailors or other people was to chip the rust off of the cannonballs and make sure that they're all, nice.
We're making sure that our cannonballs are all perfect. I mean, it's important.
Right.
Maintenance.
And they really have to be the right size. You can't just be shooting off the wrong. And that was one of the problems. Different countries would have different size cannons, and it doesn't take a lot of change. And then I was like, well, if we don't have I can capture the cannon. But if I don't have a cannonball that shoots out of that, then it's useless.
What is the point?
Exactly.
So, a little bit later on, we'll see some of the varieties of shot. Can you use just especially in naval situations like grape shot in any cannon?
Well, even the grape shot, if you look at it, it's on a little form, a shoe.
Okay.
Sabot. And so it has to be the right size. Now, sometimes, you'll just cram whatever down the barrel and hope for the best, but that's not. That's only in very big emergencies. This is likely. There's an image like this that's on Sifting the Past that is an actual naval yard where you can see the kind of equipment, and that's kind of what's going on here. We can see cannon barrels laid out. There's no carriages, there's no nothing. We have anchors, and I think that's what's trying to be shown here. I'm not sure. But I've seen other images that kind of.
Well, there is an anchor there too. So yeah.
Right, exactly. So it's like stores, and they're waiting to ship these kinds of things off. Although we see this tripod with a cook pot on it, which is odd, but interesting. Here we go, that one artist again, showing people doing different things here with 17th century style matchlock muskets and the artillery. Notice the artillery is almost exactly the same. 100-year stretch, but within that 100 years, the rifles and muskets change completely. So, it takes a long time for the bigger artillery pieces to sort of change.
Well, I'm sure they were a lot more expensive, so a lot more, right?
Exactly.
You'd keep them around a lot longer.
Exactly. Here's some of the different kinds of shots. So, yes, sometimes we're shooting off a solid cannonball. Other times, we're shooting off, there's chain shot, there's grape shot, there's split shot, and there are other ones like bar shot, case shot, and even some other strange styles, depending on what the purpose was and what you were trying to do. And of course, an actual artillery shell, which will have exploding stuff in it, right? So it's like a hollow ball with gunpowder on the inside. But chain shot and split shot here are made specifically to do things like take the rigging down out of a ship. Grape shot is more anti-personnel, but sometimes you just want to attack the rigging of a ship, and grape shot would do that. And case shot specifically against people, anti-personnel. This is oddly, this is actually a piece of art showing the study for a stage set. So they wanted to do a play or a whatever, which was at a fortification. But it's actually a really good representation, too, of what a fortification might look like in our time period. It would make a good spot for a play, people coming in and out of the buildings, and
It kind of made me think about Hamlet, because it starts off in this kind of area. So
we see the cannons. Now, these are kind of smallish cannons. If you're in a fortress like this, you might have bigger cannons. A lot of times the fortresses are going to be around a body of water or something like that, and you're going to fire them way off into the ocean or into the river that your fortification is close to.
Okay, you want to pause for just
sure.
a drop out. Okay, so somebody was saying, don't forget heated shot to set fires, right?
Right, and I didn't have a chance to, that's too bad. I have somewhere a whole bunch of video and images from the fort at St. Augustine. Great fort down there. And they have, right along the ocean side, between the fort wall and the ocean, there are the ovens that they used for heating shot.
Oh.
Very interesting. It was, say, probably a 10-foot long stone oven, basically, and you'd put a big fire in there, and inside of it there were metal sort of rails for the balls to roll down, and it was a little higher where you fed them in, and they would roll down the slot and stop at the far end, and then the red hot shot, you'd take special tongs and take it out of the oven, and then the next one would just roll down into position. They would heat up constantly. So really, really fun design. I can't imagine the scariness of loading a red hot cannonball into a cannon, and you better hope you got a lot of wadding between the cannonball and and the gunpowder in there. So it's probably every time it's like drop it in there and hope everything's gonna work out.
Okay, so this is a comment from Farmer's Wife, who is on the cannon crew. We have fired both biscuits and hardtack for fun out of the cannons.
I wouldn't want to be on the receiving end of that.
Look out, everyone! It's dangerous. Okay, I'm gonna do a couple of the super chats. Okay, so this one's from Max Arcola. Hi, John. Did Townsend supply any of the equipment or clothing for the upcoming Revolutionary War series from Ken Burns?
You could probably answer that better than me.
I actually don't know. I'm a lot of times they order it way ahead of time, obviously because filming takes a while, and sometimes they order it under a different name. So if they did, we missed it when it happened.
I'm pretty sure. I thought somebody else actually knew.
See, it seems highly likely that they did.
I think we can answer that with a pretty positive yes. And that series is starting on the 16th. So Sunday night, you can start to view the Ken Burns documentary. So it's going to be, it's like 12 hours. It's huge, and they've got big names, and it's going to be pretty epic. So I suggest that if you have 12 hours of your life you would like to give up to this, go for it. I will guarantee you will enjoy it. So.
And then there's a super chat from, I believe it's Charlemagne, just a donation. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
And then there is a question from, let's see, Hunter Hertzfeld. This live stream is going great guns.
Wow. We need a dad joke episode.
That's right.
Just all dad jokes.
All dad jokes.
Here is a piece out of a 18th century book on, I think it was a translation, but a treatise on artillery in the 18th century. And they were talking about the range of cannons. So always interesting. It's hard to believe. It's like, okay. So this is a table of tests that the French did on cannons, and the range is from a 24 pounder, so they're shooting off a cannonball that weighs 24 pounds, down to a 4 pounder. So a 4 pounder cannonball is only that's oh, this guy's scooey. This is probably maybe a little bit bigger than a 4 pounder, I think. About, it's about a 4 pounder size. This is an Osage orange. This isn't a cannonball.
It could be that dangerous, though.
Probably would be. Anyway. So they have this 24 pounders, and generally in the time period, you wouldn't see anything really bigger than, say, a 32 pounder in the biggest ships or in the biggest fortifications. So a 24 pounder, it says here they tested the range, and this is at 45 degrees, full elevation for a long gun. And the range was 4,800 yards. So 2.7 miles for a 24 pounder at maximum range. Very hard to hit anything at that. But can you imagine flinging a 24 pound cast iron cannonball more than 2.5 miles? Now it says here the range of a 4 pounder, pretty small, at 1.8 miles. Now the problem is your 4 pounder ball, while you might be able to pitch it more than a mile away, isn't going to have very much hitting force behind it. A 24 pounder still at that, when it gets there, is going to be like devastating. But a 4 pounder that far out, you got to be pretty close if you're really going to do any damage with a 4 pounder. Now, what was the thing about the cannonball going in the ground? What was that?
He was saying that when you were shooting the bigger ones, it would go into the ground at 9 to 13 feet. There was that much force behind it.
Right. And imagine if it was a shell and it buried itself in the ground 10 feet and then it exploded, right? So, bad news. You don't want to be hanging out for that. We are at the halfway mark. Let us talk about Patreon and YouTube members. And I wasn't able to do last week's because I got distracted or whatever it was, which isn't hard to do. So I've got some of last week's names as well as this week's name. These are new and renewing YouTube members. Luke Cole, Kevin Klein. Get it? It's like Kevin Klein. Johnny Taranto, Farmhouse Tees, William Vance, Swamp Yankee, Tyalun Chow, I think. Obviously, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce that. Silver Zephyr, Caitlin Buckley, Reeves, Lai Margarita, Tasha Novak, someone just with the name Owl, and then there's Andrew Heckman, Mark Raymond, Farmer's Wife, Dennis Ponce, Diane Elizabeth, and Aqua Gardner 1984. And new Patreon folks. Swamp Yankee, he was up there in the other list. He's double supporting us. Thank you, Swamp Yankee. David Maxwell, Chris Henderson, Ghost Pepper Calamari. Look out there. And Calvin Kelly. So there we go. So thank you for your direct, purposeful support of what we do here on the channel.
Okay, I'm trying to think if there's any other... Oh, someone mentioned they were wondering if we'd seen the trailer for Young Washington that's coming out next year. And I looked it up. I haven't seen it. We'll have to watch the trailer when we're done. Looks fun.
James Gibbs is asking about ads. Don't ask me what YouTube is doing.
They have been so weird this last 3 months about ads. Like, we have got to... I've got to go in and change the ads within an hour of
right.
the... Or, like,
right.
I don't know. It's just,
so,
I think all the creators are upset about it.
Right. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know why they're thinking it, except give me more money. Right? That's all that's all I can get. If we got to play around with the settings, we try to do it as much as possible. But bear with us as we battle the
settings.
I mean, it is an amazing platform, okay? Mm-hmm. I'll just say that. It's just crazy. We've been here on YouTube for 15 years, people. 15 years we've been fighting this monster.
And given the speed of how technology has been changing in that time, it's incredible that it's been so, worked so well for so long.
Right. So we may have to fiddle with the settings again. So Sorry if it's distracting. Even though they say, no, we're trying to make it so it isn't distracting. Really, guys? Really? Okay.
So I've got a super chat here from Speed and Style Tony. My father's uncle cast the reproduction cannons used at Fort William Henry.
That is really, really neat. There was a place that cast cannons just up here in South Bend, Indiana. I don't know if they're still up there casting cannons. Yeah. But just the whole concept. And we got a picture here, at least later on. I was thinking about all the Diderot's pictures of casting cannons, and I thought, I can only put your patience to the test just so much.
25 pictures of cannon casting later.
And here's where they do the John, boring. Anyway. Here we go. This is Fort St. George, and did we miss one? Yeah, we'll see. We had that one. I don't know if it's hard to imagine. There are different descriptions of being in a battle at sea with the cannons going off and just deafening how anyone survived. It's amazing the amount of people survive in these settings. It's like only half the people died. That's incredible. Anyway, naval battles, and tight-packed ships coming in, attacking anchored ships, and I don't know. It's hard. It's amazing. It's amazing. This isn't an attack. This is a salute. The ship comes in. It will salute the castle or fortification, or in this case, this might be a salute to, say, a captain coming on board, or some other official person coming on board the ship to talk to them, do whatever. And so it's like, hey, somebody's coming on board, let's shoot off the guns, woohoo! And, wouldn't you want to do that?
I mean, it warns everyone that it's time to start, standing up straight and looking like you're working hard.
Right, and so each kind of ship, each kind of person or fortification, depending on who's in charge there, is going to have a different number of guns you fire. So many gun salute, right? 13 gun salute, 7 gun salute, whatever, depending on just how important you are. And there you go. So if you're royalty, you can get certain kinds of. We got image from the 18th century, a sailor there with a stick to hit somebody with and a cannon right behind him. And then this other, again, some sort of naval officer here, and the cannon bore that's right in front of him is huge. That is like giant. So I don't know what kind of cannon or what the artist was thinking when they were doing this particular image. And I'm not even sure.
I've got a couple questions here.
Yeah.
So one of them was connected to the naval battles. Mm-hmm. How many of the sailors knew how to swim in case they ended up?
I mean, I don't know exactly. I believe that the thought is that not that many sailors really knew how to swim, and that one of the reasons was they didn't want to prolong their death struggle. It's like, well, if I'm going to fall in the water, I want to die quickly. I don't want to sit there treading the water forever. But it's hard to say.
Some of that is kind of hearsay, probably,
Exactly.
because no one
They're
took
not
a poll.
talking about it.
And then here's a question from earlier. Were there any ways to protect the cannons from rusting?
They were painted, and some of the cannons were brass or bronze instead of being iron. And there's a lot of different changes. There's different, brass is good for one thing and iron's good for another. Like when a brass cannon explodes, it's not nearly as dangerous. When an iron cannon explodes, it's just shrapnel everywhere, and the brass just kind of rips open. So
safety glass.
You wouldn't want to be around either way. But they also heat differently. So some of them are more accurate, but they can't take as many firings before they're too hot to use. So there's pluses and minuses, but generally on an iron cannon, but you're not really worried about the outside. What you're really worried about is what's happening to the bore of the cannon. So is it wearing out? So every time you fire it, it kind of eats up the metal a little bit. And if you're not really paying attention to it, and you're not looking at that and what's going on, your cannon will go bad and it will explode on someone, and that's really bad. You don't want to be there when that happens.
So here's a super chat from Hunter Hertzfeld. I remember reading that the Boonesboro settlers fashioned a wooden cannon and used it during the siege of Boonesboro.
I'll show you a wooden cannon later on. Now,
do you know what wood they made it out of? Because I'm sure some wood would be perfect, and other wood you're like, oh no.
Well, it depends. Okay, so apparently some of the super early cannons in medieval kind of thing, they were wood, and they would just kind of make them like a wooden barrel, right? And put straps around it, and talk about exploding. Whee! There was one image somewhere online that showed a metal-lined barrel. So it was a wooden cannon, but internally there was like a metal pipe on the inside that would, take the brunt of it. I wouldn't suggest either one of those. And then, of course, Quakers, and we'll talk about Quakers here in a little bit. So we're going to go back, unless you've got another question really quick.
No, go ahead.
So there we go. Those are guys. Come on. Wrong image. There we go. Boscawen and Sheerness privateers engaging a fleet of French ships at Martinico, 5 of which were taken and 1 sunk and 2 escaped. 1745. So the English are at war in that time period. This is 1745 is similar to when they're at war against the French, with the Spanish and all that good stuff. And these are small ships. These are just like one-deckers, just frigates, basically, and privateers. And generally, privateers are usually smaller ships like this anyway. They're little ships like 10-gun ships and 5-gun ships, whatever. But we have, still, devastating cannon fire going off on both of those situations. This is a cannon down in Cartagena. This is just sitting there. Obviously, there's no carriage or anything like that. If you go to St. Augustine, they have a ton of pieces, barrels, stuff in their, on carriages. Very impressive artillery down there at St. Augustine in Florida.
It was very interesting to see because they had so many.
Yeah. And
so you got to kind of compare the different makes, and that some of them were, just visually from me not knowing anything about cannons, they were much finer. And other ones you could tell they were like, quick, get us some cannons.
Yeah,
so they did not show the same amount of detail.
Right. Here is ironworks for casting cannons and a boring mill in Shropshire. And we have a big water wheel, and probably for the boring operation, but it could be just to, run the bellows for the casting whatnot. You can see a little wheel up there further on, but casting cannons, a big operation. So this is out of Diderot's encyclopedia, and it was one of the more interesting ones for me because this is about the boring of a cannon. I know you're looking at it, it's like,
I'm looking at the picture.
I don't get it.
Well, I don't see that.
Okay, so you can see the cannon barrel and it's supported up there.
Okay.
Right? And this is tricky. So those cannon barrels, a lot of times, there is no hole in them when they're made. They are solid. Mm-hmm. So how do we get the cannon bore in there? Right. We want it to be super straight. It's got to be exactly the right size. This is not an easy operation. If you've ever tried to drill anything of any length, you're like, how do you even do that? So what they have here is the cannon that's supported by its own weight, or you're going to use the weight of the cannon itself to go down onto so let's say a drill bit that's what we think of it as, but it's a boring bit. And this at the bottom here is a sweep. It's a big long pole that you hook your horses to. So it's turning that drill bit. The horses are turning the drill bit, right? And then the cannon slowly gets lowered down onto this drill bit, and this, you can see kind of rails. Everything is holding that in just the right position so that you can bore the cannons. And this is one of the things that keeps cannons from being super accurate, because they don't have great ways to get this done until the 19th century.
Yeah.
Here is a Rev War battle. We can see, all these troops here. The town's on fire because that ship has been shooting at the town and catching it on fire. And we do have a little bit of cannon things going on here on the lines of soldiers, but we also have, generally, the artillery is happening off the edge. They're not going to have the artillery right there in the battle. They're going to be, a mile away going, ha, 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 And these guys here in the foreground are probably trying to shoot at the ships that are shooting at the town, right? So, this is just a little exercise, a little practice here, and some of this is flying artillery, which means basically very, very rapid deployment, small guns, hauled by a single horse maybe, and moved into position, and sometimes they're called grasshopper cannons or whatever. These would be very small, like 3 and 4 pounders that you could move into position and fire within 5 minutes or something like that, instead of these bigger cannons, which you would take all day to move into position.
And with their different uses, right? So
Exactly.
being used for different things.
Exactly. This was very interesting. I don't know how Lauren found this. Anyway, so if you read this, you find out that it was this 33-year-old person who was killed by a cannonball. A cannonball thrown by the cruel and unnatural foes, the British troops, while he was on duty at Dorchester Point, and they have a poem and everything. And so he was part of the 18th Massachusetts Bay Provincial Regiment.
Yeah, and I think it was unexpected, if I'm remembering correctly from the rest of the description. There wasn't an active battle going on.
Right.
They were like in the town, and there had been a fire in the town, and so the British had assumed it was something, they're like, something's going on, and so they had fired into the town kind of unexpectedly.
And this guy just like a lightning strike.
Yes.
Just out of nowhere.
A meteor.
Yeah. Very interesting. We can see here they've built an artillery park or a range here for the cannons, and they have bastions or wicker baskets basically filled with dirt to protect the gun crews around their cannons. Again, this isn't a quick, hey, let's set up artillery real quick fast. It's like, no, we're going to take a long time and get this so that we can attack a town or whatever it is. Here's a little toy cannon somebody's shooting off just for the fun of it. And yes, of course, they had toys of all kinds of strange things. Here is a mortar, so attacking behind the lines, basically. Fairly large. They had some very small mortars that would, they were generally, they didn't use the same measurements. So a mortar is measured in inches versus pounds. So they're measuring how big the bore is instead of how heavy the cannonball was, because of course they're firing shells instead, and the weight doesn't matter. So the diameter is what matters. Here is a model of a wall gun. So sometimes you get kind of halfway between a musket and a cannon. So your wall gun might be shooting just a 1-pound ball. It's not really quite a cannon. And in this case, it's using a lock instead of using a linstock, which is just like a match on a stick, and you're just hitting some gunpowder. Instead, this has something like a gun lock on it, so that it's easier and quicker to fire. An artillery park where we have cannons and different things going on here. Here is an 18th century 6-pounder, and that's kind of a medium size, good size, cannon. Now, why it's here, and this cannon has a naval carriage. This isn't a kind of carriage that you would normally see. You might see it in a fort, but not typically just out in the grass.
Is this more typical with these larger wheels for field artillery?
Yeah. That's field artillery is going to have these big wheels so you can haul it around.
It has a long way to go.
Yes, exactly. And this was very interesting. It's cannon being drawn by, notice how many horses it's taken to draw this cannon. And this cannon is not set up on a carriage. It's really just on a transportation wagon being moved to possibly some, say, town or whatever. Now, the cannon here, sort of in the foreground on the right-hand side, is on a carriage. But notice there's an extra set of wheels in the front. When you take off those front wheels so that you can use it in the field when you're ready to fire it. But when you have to move it around, it's going to have those little front wheels, and it might even have this little trailer sort of thing going on where that hauls the cannonballs and the powder along with it. So it's a complicated and lots of equipment.
Well, and one of the books that was talking about field artillery specifically, that he was spending quite a bit of time talking about horses, about picking the right horses, about not letting one group monopolize the best horses, about having a good driver who doesn't overuse the horses and gets the most out of them long term instead of overworking them. And it's clearly a very important part of the equipment. And then another section was talking about the people who were spending quite a bit of time repairing because the carriages would need a lot of maintenance because this is rough work for them.
And a lot of times the bearings are just wooden bearings, so they wear out. Here is a standard carriage on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side they have a mortar on a field carriage. Interesting, because a lot of times we don't see them on a carriage like that, but you got to move them around. So some of them are small enough you can carry and put into position by hand, but other times, obviously we've got a wheeled carriage here. Here's one of these small little cohorn style mortars, a much smaller style mortar that we just pick up with rings, put poles through the rings, and different people haul them around in a more of a battle setting. There's a howitzer, which is a different style of cannon, meant to be moved and shot, and I think these are just models here.
Yes.
But howitzers, they shoot at a different elevation than standard cannons. Are not meant to shoot for a distance, but they're shooting a bigger cannon, bigger ball size. Generally more of an anti-personnel versus other styles. Look, you see all the horses are hauling this cannon with. Typical, again, a model of a bronze cannon of the time period. Some of these early ones, they had these strange little, much smaller diameter. I can't even remember the name of this one.
It feels like it had a falcon in it.
Yeah, a falconet.
Falconet?
Yeah, exactly. This is from St. Augustine, and you can see some of now notice they're all bronze here. A lot of them at that setting were bronze, and they tend to be a prettier looking,
they
sharper,
look really
more
nice,
defined styles and whatnot. Some of them just beautiful pieces. This is a carronade. So right at the end of the Revolutionary War in the 1780s or so, the British came up with this carronade idea, which is generally used in naval situations where they would have a much larger bore, a much shorter gun. They would fire it instead of on a wheeled carriage, they were fired on slides. And it changed naval warfare completely because they could shoot them off with a much smaller crew And if you were close, much more devastating fire. And so you did not want to come up against, if you just had, the old style guns, you did not want to come up against a whole bunch of carronades, especially a mixed ship where you had both long guns and carronades. So you had good guns for a long distance, and then, boy, you'd come up close and just wipe everybody out. So there's a carronade. Here's one on board ship. They look sort of completely different. And again, these are very popular during the Napoleonic Wars in, say, 1812. And here are some Quakers. So there were times when you had fake cannons.
Oh, yes.
So
sure.
here they just like, well, we're just going to poke these logs up here and make them look like they're cannons so that people think, they're it's like, don't come up against this fortification. Look at all those cannons.
Right? You're like, let's say you only had 3. You're like, get some logs out there. We'll look like we'll have 12.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this is from the Civil War. And there we are.
Okay, I've got a couple super chats here. Well, first, someone was noting that the cannons are bronze. They called them brass in the time period, but they are bronze.
Yeah, exactly.
Made out of.
Brass they're some of they both have copper in them, but the bronze wouldn't explode. A brass gun would just explode because it's too brittle.
So here's a super chat from Aaron O'Hora. Interesting topic today. Could you make a video focusing on various small arms of the time? Historical firearms haven't been featured for a while.
Well, one of the reasons why we don't talk a lot about historical firearms here is because YouTube
doesn't like it very much. Which is a shame.
Even historical things, that aren't. Anyway.
Okay, so this super chat is from Northern Wolf. Watching the stream and finishing up the school bus run now. I'm clocking out, by the way. I just wanted to mention that this channel does not blow and that you hit the target every time. Explosion! And then a little thing, and then smiley, and then crying, and crying laughing. Keep firing.
Woo! Wow. Let those dad jokes fly. Wow.
Somebody was saying that the dad jokes were extremely strong in the chat today, which they absolutely were. Good job, everyone.
A competent knowledge of the classics. This is for your officers of artillery. A competent knowledge of the classics and of arithmetic is required. Previous admission to the Royal Military Academy, where the education embraces mathematics, especially the branches applicable to gunnery, fortification, drawing, French, fencing, and dancing. You better know how to dance if you're going to be an artillery officer. And to these, perhaps he well may add German and equitation, horse knowledge, there to your education. So if you're wanting to be a officer for artillery in the 18th century, just keep all that in mind. Get your French going and, drawing and dancing, fencing. Okay. The horse artillery of England appears to have been formed about 1793. Other continental armies were using the horse artillery, so that super lightweight and fast deployed artillery English take a while before they really kind of accept it. And it really does kind of change they bring it on for a purpose, because there are times when it's like, boy, if we just had one little cannon here, it'd make all the difference in the world. And so they bring on the horse artillery in 1793. In the earlier formations of the Corps, the lightest guns were supposed to be the best adapted to the service of horse artillery, and accordingly, 3-pounders, light 6-pounders, and light 5 and 5.5-inch howitzers were first alone used. So they're using pretty small things. Of course, if you're just hauling around, you want to have little guns. Why are you smiling?
Read the chat.
Everybody needs a howitzer. So at the fort at Fort Wayne, I don't know what they have there now, but a lot of the early, because it was on the frontier, what they had, because of what was attacking the fort in Fort Wayne was just, like Native Americans or whatever, howitzers were the go-to kind of piece. So they did have some like 6 and 12 pounders, but they were just there to make a big boom sound, because it's like, who's going to attack my fort? With I'm in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, no, there are no other cannons coming towards me. Yeah.
And artillery really changes how fortifications are made. So star forts were specifically designed against, so that they would be hard to come at with artillery. So quality of gun. Look at all this. Look at that. We're out of time.
Oh, I got another super chat. Hold on, let me get back to it. Okay, so Jolene Intrim is saying, fake cannons, just like the ghost army of World War II.
Yeah, it's like sometimes your best weapon is to pretend that you're big and scary. It's like, look at all those cannons we have. Don't you dare come close to me.
Very dangerous.
I could do devastating things with my fake cannons. And they even did that on board ship too. They might have 4 real cannons, and look at all those, deck filled with cannons. Like, yeah, well, not so much. Did we do it?
Yes.
Incredible, guys. Always fun to get into the Nutmeg Tavern and pick a topic and just go crazy with it. So many interesting things going on in our time period. Super thank you to folks out there who are supporting us, merch or super chat or members and Patreon folks, and the people who aren't able to do that but just share our videos. That is so incredibly important to what we do. Again, make sure to check out the PBS Ken Burns documentary. It's going to be a thing, and going on for multiple weekends. So it's not just this Sunday, but the one after that and the one after that. So it's going to be really good. We've got, I think, the episode that's coming up on Sunday.
Hold on. Let me see if I can see which one it is. Nope, it doesn't say which one it is yet.
I think it's going to be the soldier clothing. So
Okay.
Instead of cooking, we're going to be talking about soldiers for the next week or two on the channel. So it's going to be it's a biggie. It's a doozy. It's a doozy. So make sure to check out the episode on Sunday. You will love it. Again, thank you, Lauren, thank you, Ivy, and everyone out there. I hope you have a super tremendous weekend. We should have a little bit nicer weather, so it should be really good. Thanks for watching.